My role here, my role is really to try and help demystify this process. This actually started several years ago out of a chief of staff grant I got to increase the number of women and underrepresented faculty and upper academic faculty ranks. I'm very passionate about that. There are a number of members of the School of Medicine Faculty Affairs team on this call today who are going to serve as your point people as well to help Deneen in her office with processing your applications and making things move forward. I think that probably the biggest benefit to having me attend this is because I have sat in those reviewers' chairs in terms of summarizing applicants and trying to determine if they meet those criteria based on review of all of the information in the packet. And I've advised, I can't even remember, I'm guessing close to 100 faculty in terms of how to draft their personal statements and their CVs to make that job as easy as possible. So I'm here for questions. We're very committed to your success and really absolutely thrilled that you are interested and engaged and involved in a career in academic medicine and want to move forward with those academic ranks. I think it's particularly important that we do that and that your work and your academic title reflects your CV. I'm going to stop now and I'm going to turn that over to Nicole, if that's okay with you, Deneen. I'm going to assume the smile means yes.
Yes, it does. Hi, Nicole. How are you?
I am very well. Thank you for the invitation. And I am delighted that so many people were able to join.
Yes.
My name is Nicole Deming. I am the Assistant Dean for Faculty Affairs, and I'm also appointed in the Department of Bioethics. And so I will just share that I was extremely ignorant of what it takes to be a faculty. When I joined in 2009, I, again, am trained as an attorney. So that's my background. And it was a bit of a surprise to get appointed in a med school. It is fantastic. I love it. I love the work I do. I think it is amazing, but I had a lot of help along the way. And now it is actually part of my job in my assistant dean role to help demystify this process. And it is not supposed to be complicated. It is not supposed to be opaque. And so, you know, my goal for these sessions is to really make sure that the criteria is clear. And then we give you enough information to say, based on your goals, your timeline, you can set up a plan to make it happen. There is so much support there to see you succeed and to see you get promoted. So please know that if there is anything we can do to assist you, review something, we are here to help and answer any questions you have. And again, clarifying. So again, I will just say thank you for the invitation. And I am going to share my screen if I can. All right. Does that work?
We do see it. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. It's always nice when things work out. Okay, but you know, from the end rather than the beginning. So here I am. Okay. To start out, promotion is a good thing. You do incredible work every single day. And the idea behind academic medicine and recognition of promotion being external is it shouldn't just be luck of the draw that anyone who walks through the, you know, your walls, your institution gets to benefit. You figured things out, right? You know how to be a clinician, you know how to be an incredible advocate for your patients, for research, or for the teaching that you do it right. And so if it is only limited to those who have direct contact with you, we feel like it's a lost opportunity. So the goal and the recognition of how the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine guidelines are created is they recognize when you get that information out, right? You're sharing it beyond your institution, and then that signifies the recognition at a regional, national, or international. So you are doing great things. We want you to share it. And then that is the criteria for promotion. So it really is recognizing the good work you do and getting the word out there. I think, and again, I apologize for being a little late, but I think that Deneen has set up that we're going to deal with the senior level promotions. We do have presentations on junior level promotions, but for the purposes of this talk, we're really going to talk about non-tenure track going up for associate professor and professor. So those are senior level. Again, it is effective twice a year. And as Diane said, for in the clinic and also at Metro Health, these are ongoing events. It's a rolling process. As soon as it's ready, she sends it to our office on main campus to get in front of the School of Medicine CABT, and we forward it on to the next appropriate bodies of review. And then based on when the provost gets it is really when it determines whether it's going to be effective on a July 1st date or a January 1st. But I wanted to take a step back and say, you have a faculty appointment based on our faculty handbook. And it is something that we encourage you to read. There are guidelines there, expectations, but it's a good reminder of you got a faculty appointed, you were appointed faculty full-time because you provided evidence and your chair nominated you based on your expert knowledge in your academic field. And then for non-tenure track full-time faculty, you made a commitment to doing 2 out of the 3 things, either teaching, research, or service, right? And I will say we talk about service as professional service, which includes both clinical service and administrative service. So the very nature of your appointment means you're doing these activities. And now it's, over the years, you expand in your expertise and you continue to grow as a professional. And this is the basis for the promotion. So teaching, service, or research. So regardless of what area you choose as your primary area of excellence, all candidates are reviewed for those 3 things. And when you're looking at your personal statement, start out with your strongest one. I think sometimes there's a misconception of, oh, well, it was listed as research and service and then teaching, and so I followed that. But if you're like, I don't really do a lot of research, right? I've done some collaborations, but that's how you start out. I would recommend that you start out strong, right? Give the spotlight to your primary area of excellence. Why do people know you? Why do you get invited to give lectures? Who are you collaborating with? How is your name known? And so if it is pedagogy and you figured out how to do residency program, or you have adapted to competency-based learning, or you are an incredible clinician and you are creating the OSCEs for your specialty, or you're writing board questions. I again, am not a clinician, so forgive me if this is not an appropriate characterization. I will just say, if your peers have recognized you for your excellence and your expertise, and that's why you are known, that's your primary area of excellence. Non-tenure track need to have one other area, so you have to do those 2. Going back to the appointment of why you have a faculty appointment, it's 2 out of those 3. And so for your promotion, you will select 2 out of those 3, but you would do all 3. And if you do all 3, you'll get credit. So I would just say, don't worry if they're uneven. You just need the primary one and then some contribution. I will say, just for frame of reference, these are sorry, I also have a 3-year-old at home. These are the deadlines, and based on when we get it from the hospital and send it through the School of Medicine, this is when it would be effective. So these are kind of the things that, just for point of reference. For non-tenure track, if your major area, primary area of excellence is teaching or clinical service, to get promoted to associate professor, you must show a regional level of reputation, that there are individuals with beyond Cuyahoga County and its connecting counties, or behind your institution. So if you go to Cleveland Clinic, Florida, and give a lecture there, that's still the institution. So that's not even considered regional or national. That's local because it's the same institution. For promotion to professor, you need national recognition. Something that is required for individuals who choose education as their primary of excellence, and highly recommended for anyone else who teaches, is a teaching portfolio. It is something that you include a description of your teaching philosophy. There's really no other place that you get to talk about this and say, this is how I learn, this is how I teach, and this is why I do it. Here's how I've grown in my professional development. And then it goes into some details that show your impact and the amount of work and thought that has gone into the education that you provide. So it's not a copy and paste from your CV. Oh, here are my students and I bring them over, or here are my lectures and I just have copied and paste. It is selective. You are picking the cream of the crop and expanding upon it so that anyone reviewing it appreciates the work that you did. And also the thought that went into it, and your impact on those learners. And so not only do we have a teaching philosophy, but you highlight your teaching areas. It could be by subject matter, or it could be by learner. So if you do resident teaching and MD teaching, and maybe you even have high school students in your lab, I mean, whatever it is, we want you to organize it. And then again, it is a 25-page limit. And I will say I've seen incredible, sorry, 1 second. Honey, I'm sorry, I can't know. Sorry, 1 second. My computer is now asking me if I wanted to play iTunes.
I was going to say, I think many of us have been in that position, Nicole, so don't worry. I mean,
yes,
if you want to mute, I can maybe take over for a bit while you.
Yes, no, I think we're okay for a second, but I will pass it on if need be. So here are the different elements of the teaching portfolio. And then I would also say that for clinical excellence, I think sometimes people are unsure of what to provide evidence of, right? They're like, well, I'm a really good clinician, but I don't know what you're looking for about this regional or national reputation. It is participation in national societies, your professional organizations, and then moving from being a member and attending those conferences to participating in committees and planning and being a moderator and then taking a leadership role. And so, you know, you can see your progression and recognition from your peers on you've got this, right? You're someone that is a leader, you understand the nuances, and you're helping us, you know, direct the field in the future. And so it's those invitations, it's the development of practices and being a participant at a regional and national landscape that we're looking for. What those conferences are, what those journals are, what those case reports are, and where they're published is discipline specific. And this is where mentorship is key. You should have individuals that are within your field, within your institution, and outside of your institution at peer levels and, you know, a higher academic rank that can advise you on very specific things, that can use some of their social capital to make those connections. And so I would just say that this is something that it takes a little thought, takes deliberate action, but you should not go at it alone, right? This is part of your professional development. And so it is something that you should bring up during your APR and with the leaders within your field and institution and across institutions, so that this is deliberate and it plans and it works with your timeline. I will just say that as a reminder, you pick your primary of excellence, and then as non-tenure track, you pick one other area that you've made a contribution to. For research, the standard is higher. If you choose to go up as research as your primary of excellence and you are getting promoted to associate professor, you must display a national reputation. There is no regional research reputation. Your publications, your grants, your presentations really are on a national landscape. And that's where the dialogue takes place about research and advancements on that discipline. For promotion to professor with research as your primary of excellence, it's an expanded national or an international reputation. I will also say since 2006, the School of Medicine has recognized that not every researcher is a PI, right? Not every researcher is going to get R01s. There are individuals who are critical to a team approach. And when that occurs and someone identifies as a team researcher, we look towards the originality, creativity, indispensability of their contribution. So it's not just, oh, I needed a bioethicist or I needed a statistician. It's, oh, I needed you because of your expertise in research ethics and how you approach X, Y, and Z. And then what is key for this is for all of your contributions as a team scientist, you would annotate and say, here's my unique contribution. Here's why I was critical to this team and why I needed to be on it. As another element in your application, if you're identify as a team scientist, we also reach out to the PIs on the teams that you work on and say, help us understand what that team role was and why this individual was necessary. Okay, so yes, just went over that. And then I would just say your promotion should be something that you think of continually, right? It's not like, oh, wait, I think that sounds great. Let's do this. It may work. I think it'll be a harsher process if it's not something that you're keeping tabs on. And I had a workshop earlier on this, and an associate professor was like, listen, if I could go back and start recording what I have done, it would be a lot less painful. We do so much. And I think we don't appreciate how often we're asked to do lectures or work on a project together, and the service that we've done, the teaching that we've done, the collaborations that we've done, it just becomes normalized. And I think we often lose track, and there is nothing more painful than looking back at your Google Calendar or Outlook calendar and trying to piece together who you gave that lecture for, when and how, and what was that title. There are lots of recommendations I can provide, and you have to find what works for you. So some people say on the 2nd of every single month from 8 to 10 a.m., I have blocked it off, and that is where I update it, right? It's sacred. Like, that is the time that I've devoted. Other people have a folder in their email or on their desktop, and they just like throw things. So if it's a presentation, they just throw a copy of that presentation. All the information's there. And then either once a month, every quarter, or, once a year, it's in one location, and it, takes a little less time, because trying to find everything is just an awful experience. So anyway, I would say come up with something that makes sense for you. The CV is critical, and we do have a template that you are required to use. And I know it can be a pain to kind of translate it from what you have now into this template, but I will say it's to your benefit. So when you're applying for a grant or for an award and they have a template, you don't go off and say, you know what, thanks for asking your question, but what I'm going to do is give you this. Like, no, we have a template. Our reviewers know where to look for what. And if you do your own thing, you're making them work harder, and you're putting them in a bad mood. You don't want your reviewers to be in a bad mood, because it's there, your qualifications will be found, but it's not going to be pleasant. So I would say, all else being equal, please use the CV. And what is most critical is that you really divide those international, national, regional, and local events. So if you are at a conference, I don't care that it's based in Cleveland. I want to know if it's got a national attendance, was it peer reviewed, and you're listing it under, conferences or, presentations, and the subheading of national is going to be what I need. And so please organize it using those subheadings, and please use the template. Now I have a cattail that is coming into this. I can't wait to read this recording. So I will just say, find mentors. I was talking on the opposite end of a student coming to you, or a med student, and saying, can you be my mentor? And you're like, I'm happy to be your mentor, but I'm not sure what you want me to do, right? So think of it as, you're going to make this same question and say, I need you to look over my CV. I want to be promoted in the next 2 years. So can you please work with me, twice a year to go over my personal statement? Have a very specific ask, right? And if it's, I know that I need more presence on a national organization, you're really prominent, you've gone to this, conference every year for the last 20 years. Where would you recommend? Here's what I'm interested in. Can you recommend me? Can you nominate me for service on something? Make very specific asks. It's so much easier to meet those goals. And as a mentor, you're like, yes, I can commit to that. It's not, I'm going to be everything for you. No mentor can do that, at least in my opinion. But the commitment is to achieve a goal. And it's actually a really effective way to think about mentorship, especially for promotions. Your annual review is a nice reminder of, where are you in your timeline? When do you want to get promoted? And then also to be on the same page with the individual who is writing your nomination letter. So if it's your division chief or your center director, they're going to write the substance of it. They're going to talk about your reputation, your impact, both in the institution and in the field. and then the department chair can sign off on it, right? So you need to be on the same page and say, my primary of excellence is this, because this is how people know me. This is what I'm going to do. And, you know, are you supportive? Where are you? What do you think I need to do? Is this year? Is it next year? But, you know, get on the same page and at least bring it up in your annual review and give them a heads up if it's a year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, or yeah, I get this, but that's not a priority right now. It should be a conversation. And as it changes, keep them in the loop. Get to know your colleagues at other institutions, professional organizations. If a goal is promotion, we really are recognizing the good work that you do that gets out there, right? That is making an impact on the field. So all of these, you know, opportunities that extend beyond CWRU will be worth it. Document your teaching. I think that's one of the weakest parts of a lot of packets is people talk about how great they're, you know, they are as a teacher, and we get you know, some incredible letters. And then we're looking through the packet and we think, is this the right candidate? Because the candidate hasn't talked about it, hasn't documented it, but everybody knows them as an incredible teacher. So please don't assume that this is not important or that it'll be evident. You really want to make sure that you are gathering your teaching evaluations, that you are documenting your professional development in teaching. This is something we all have to work on. And it's not like I made it and I'm done, right? That's part of being an academic. We're never done. So please be attentive to this. And then the other thing is you will submit your teaching evaluations and someone else will actually give a summary of it. And this is something that the provost has required new last year. And so this is something that we're still in a transition of like getting the information out there so that people are aware and are prepared for this. So you're going to give your teaching evaluations, and then someone else will say, hey, here's how this compares to our department, or this is great, or yeah, there was a concern and here's what we did in response. Bad evaluations or, you know, mixed evaluations are not a deal breaker. And in fact, I would expect that not everything is glowing, because I don't know, like, are you really challenging everyone if they're like, oh, they're the, you know, not, if people have wonderful 5-star evaluations, fantastic. But I would also say, I'm also really excited when I see someone that responds to some critical feedback from a student and said, here's how I took it and this is what I did with it. Again, it shows professional growth. That's a colleague that we respect. Last thing, and then Cynthia, I may send this over to you, is service contributions. We're asked to do stuff all the time. We don't always get to say no, but when we are given a choice, please be strategic. Know what your interests are, who the people you're working with, and then make it count. So be selective. Don't just say yes to because you're flattered that it's an opportunity. Really be okay with letting things go, with moving on, with recommending another person to take your place. Service is not a lifetime term. So I would say, just please be strategic. If it is something that is at a national organization, that's going to be worth it. If it's something that gets to different mentors or leadership opportunities or access to funds and, you know, a variety of other growth opportunities, do that. You know, also say no to some things if you can, and have that be okay with you, that it's okay to say, oh no, thank you so much for the honor, but not at this time. Or I'm doing these other things. Is this something that's more of a priority? Is there something else I should give up? Because if you want me to accept this, I have to let something else go. Again, I know that is not always a reality, but it at least should be a conversation. And then I will just say scholarship is key. Make yourself indispensable. This is it. You have that role to play. You want to develop your expertise, be that go-to person in your department and the field. And then finally, there is a lot of assistance available. There are a lot of people that want to see you succeed, but it's your choice and it's your timeline. And so no one is going to care more than you. And so if this is your priority, we are here to help. If it's not the right time, that's fine, but we can't make it happen for you. And so I would just say, when you're ready, let us know. We're here to help. And if there are any questions to clarify, we're definitely here to assist you and move it forward. So that is the end of the presentation. I will stop sharing, and hopefully the sound was not too bad and you could hear me and not hear my son too much. But I will stop and open it up because I think there may be questions.
Yeah, I think that was excellent, Nicole, and everybody could hear you. At least I could, but maybe I'm used to the chaos in your household.
Maybe.
You came through loud and clear, Nicole.
I think that, quite frankly, this is the part that's most helpful, is to take the Q&As from all of you. Maybe just a couple of things. I already made my pitch for making things clear, avoiding abbreviations, clarify things in your CV, help us clearly understand your personal statement, what's going on. You want to write this as if it's for somebody who's very smart, but not in your field.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too that often comes up is external referees and how do I get those? And there it's a matter of, if you see somebody at a conference, say, would you be potentially interested? I'm going to be thinking about promotion. Are you interested in maybe serving as a reviewer? You can come up with those names. If you're in a very niche area, you may want to consider people outside of your area, but who may be related. I work with deep brain stimulation. So if you're looking at deep brain stimulation in terms of neuropsychology, you're stuck in terms of professors, because they do need to be full professors. So I looked at neurologists, neurosurgeons, I looked at psychiatrists, I looked at anybody engaged in this area as well. External referees, it's relaxed a little bit now in terms of its criteria, but it needs to be somebody you don't have a personal relationship now. And I see the questions pouring in. Deneen, do you want to MC those and pitch them to those of us who can help, including yourself?
Yeah. There was a question, a timeline between applying for professor after you become associate professor. Is it a time interval or is it based on your accomplishments and growth? And I told him it's individualized and based on when you're ready and based on your growth.
I think that's very accurate. I can tell you, sitting as a member of the review committees, what I did, and I think everybody else does, we look at when you got your last promotion, and then we start counting from there. So if you had like tons of publications before you were, appointed or promoted to associate professor, and now you've got like one or two, then we're going to be like, well, where's that continued growth? The other thing I want to say, and I mentioned this yesterday in a faculty development course that I did, is that most people think it needs to be a straight linear line like this. There are lots of data, published data and rigorous journals that show that most academic careers kind of go like this. So don't worry about it if you've got a lull there. I know when I had kids, Nicole's son's age, there was a dip in my productivity and it came back up. And so we expect those fluctuations, but the general trajectory should be up in terms of productivity widely defined, not just grants, not just publications, but contributing to academic medicine.
Right.
Okay.
I will say that there really aren't numbers. So other institutions may say you can't be considered unless you're 5 years past your last promotion. We don't do that. Average is 6-7 years between associate professor and professor. But again, that's average. So if you are, again, just publishing and you're hitting your stride and it's fantastic and you're just producing things and your reputation is growing at that accelerated rate, you go up when you're ready. And then I would also say same with number of publications and things. Yeah. It's not just limited to publications or presentations. It is a 360. You as the candidate are giving your CV, your personal statement, your teaching portfolio, up to 5 publications, your teaching evaluations, right? Your peers, your committee at CCLCM is giving their assessment based on your institution and what else they've seen and how are you with par. Your chair is giving the nomination letter and talking about your impact on the department, the institution, and the field. And then we have known colleagues, right? And your former mentees or students that can, again, talk about their firsthand experience. And then finally, it's those arm's length external referees who are in your field, right? Know what journals and what publications and what conferences you should be going to. And then they don't have a stake in your promotion. So that's that objective view that's like, yeah, and guess what? We would promote them at my institution. I mean, those are the questions that we ask. Here are our guidelines based on the evidence you're seeing. Do they meet it? And would you promote them at your institution? So I would just say, we really do want that robust full picture. And so I can't say you need 22 articles. Like that's not it.
And I think the thing is to be mindful of predatory journals because they're frowned upon, and those are the ones that say, please publish an article with us. And, oh, by the way, it's going to cost you $20,000 to do so. Don't do that. Look for reputable journals to publish in. But even then, that's not required. We've reviewed applications that were supported with very, very few applications or publications at the associate professor level, but they may have had a profound impact in terms of teaching. They may be doing national work in terms of reimbursement, which is profoundly important in terms of our livelihood. So we're not just thinking of grants and publications. There are myriad ways that you can succeed and you contribute to the academic medicine initiative. So I would not look at minimal papers. It's more that upward trajectory. And what is that regional, national, and emerging international reputation?
Right. So there is a question about external referees.
Yeah.
It is confidential whether a referee decides to write, declines, or submits a letter. And obviously, when they submit a letter, it is confidential. The candidate never sees it. And so you can't have contact with any of your referees. So once you give the names to Dineen and her office, you don't talk about your promotion with them. If you see them at a conference, I don't expect you to dive out of the way. They're allowed to say, hey, I wrote your letter, how'd it go? And you can share, or you can say, oh, it's still in process. I mean, you don't have to not talk to them, but you can't email them and be like, did you do this? Have you done that yet? And especially not anyone like a student within your lab. The dynamics, the pressure, not okay. And actually, if you do, it can invalidate your letter. So I just want to be very clear. The provost prohibits you having contact with referees, whether it be external or known, after you've submitted their name. And so, Dineen and my office, we reach out to your referees, we send them reminders. And if, some of them just don't have time, right? They're busy, or they've had a personal crisis, or they're in the move and they're, setting up a new institution, whatever it is. Often it is, I am so sorry, I've already accepted 3. I can't do one more this month. So, it doesn't reflect on the candidate, but I just can't accept. We'll come back to you and say, we need more names, right? And so don't think that is something that, is a bar. It just means we're all very busy. And this is one of the reasons that as you progress and become an associate professor and professor, you will get asked to do these, and you will remember the people that helped you out and did not have a stake in your career. It's just what is expected. All right.
The nominating chairs have a CCLCM appointment. That your academic chair should have an academic appointment.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Trina,
sorry.
hi. Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
So instead of writing it, because I feel that's going to take a long time. In some cases, some of us start in one position and then we gradually transition into something else, with the result that maybe we are like 30 split between service, teaching, and research. And so that makes it quite difficult to determine where one's excellence is, because it may have been one thing in the past and now it may be on the verge of being something else. So how do one go about that? And is there a place where we can meet up with someone who can help us determine where to put our effort?
Yeah, I think that general rule of thumb for everybody who is not an LRI professional staff member, I think it's fair that you're not going to go up for research as your primary area of excellence, because there you are looking at grants and publications. And I see the question regarding H index, and that really is not necessarily included in our evaluation as well. but the bar is higher with respect to grant funding and so on. Most of us, myself included, who do have some of those NIH-funded grants, but my primary area is clinical or service, but I still engage in research. So I think pragmatically, that's how I would view it. If you're looking at teaching, it'd be somebody who a substantial amount of your time is devoted to teaching. I don't know how many of you saw Dr. Ridgway's presentation on the different tracks in terms of what they're looking at for the APR. They've already done that within the Neurological Institute. But this would be somebody who plays a very prominent role in education that takes a substantial portion of their time. So I think by and large, the majority of CCLCM promotions are going to be with the major area of excellent being service, including clinical service. Is that fair from your perspective, Deneen and Nicole?
Yeah, I would just add that not only time, but impact. So again, I may spend a lot of time teaching, but if it's teaching that stays within the institution, that's not building the reputation. So the question is, how do people know me outside, right? So why am I getting invited to presentations or invited lectures? What am I discussing? And it's the subject matter. So sometimes I think there's confusion between teaching and clinical. If the subject matter is pedagogy, it's teaching. If it's how you provide care or your clinical expertise, despite the fact that it's teaching about that, you are actually going to have clinical or service as your primary of excellence.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. I think too that sometimes thinking outside of the box in terms of those teaching evaluations, that I remember I've advised others, and I think with mine I included like national teaching I did for part of CE credits and those evaluations. So whatever supporting data you have, I think is helpful in terms of making your reviewer's job as easy as possible. People want you to succeed.
And I think you could be close to where you're unsure which one. Try to pick your most prominent one for the primary, and the other one would be your secondary. And you could say in your personal statement that it was hard to choose, that you feel like you have a reputation in both. But yeah, you can definitely pick a different primary area for your promotion than when you first applied for, say, assistant or associate.
Thank you.
Yes.
And I should say that we also do have, I've got a cohort of people who served on the CCLCM CAP, as well as Deneen and Nicole's offices to offer advice. But some of the faculty reviewers have said they're actually very willing to review applications and advise.
Right. So, and like you were saying, the H index, it's real different if you're picking research. Just to remake the point that Dr. Kabu was, that 90% of applications at CCLCM are for professional service as your primary area of excellence. It's about maybe 7-8% that do research, and they're almost entirely based in LRI, and they do research all day long. The few extra percentage points are people who pick teaching. And it's not a lot, because like it was said earlier, it's more like you're not just teaching, but you're trying to be better at teaching, and you're being asked to lecture on teaching, even on how to, the best way to teach new residents or something like that. So hardly anybody picks teaching as their primary area.
I think that since you are looking at research, Martin, I think that an H index, if it's high, is certainly going to help, but it's not going to make or break things. They're going to be looking at pattern, at your funding. They're going to be looking at kind of where are you publishing. They're going to be really paying attention to those external referees. If you're a team scientist, I know both for myself, I do team science as well as an independent PI. So they're going to be looking at your collaborators in terms of what they have to say and your indispensable role. H factor, if it's helpful, sure, you can put it in there, but I think that it's not critical.
Right.
Does that help? Yeah.
Right. And I would see that where I've most often seen it, or where I would recommend, is again in your conversation with who's writing your nomination letter. If it's great, have your chair write it, have it be in that nomination letter. The other thing is, if there are a couple articles that have just been cited thousands of times, you may want to annotate and be like, this is a publication that has been cited this is the impact of this, right? So it may have been something that was published prior to your last appointment or promotion, but you're highlighting and adding new information about the impact of it over the years. And so again, every case is different. So there is information that you get to, control the narrative. Make sure that, it's not something that you have to add the impact factor or the, citations for every single article you write. But if there's one that's just phenomenal, or there are 3 that are great, like highlight those. And then again, in your conversation with your chair and nominator, that's, can you highlight this because it comes across differently from a chair saying, and by the way, this is the reputation this individual has and the impact on the field. It's just a fact, it's out there, but I would say that narrative can come from you and from them.
Yeah, like if you've got a study that was featured on the cover of a journal, that's a huge honor, right? And that indicates kind of the extent to which, people thought that this was critical. So there, once again, as Nicole said, I think this is really important. There's a lot more control you have, and nobody knows your story better than you do.
Right.
In
And
terms of-
definitely, yeah, if you're picking research, there are higher standards for that. You usually have to have grants and stuff, so you can look at our requirement worksheet.
Mm-hmm. And if you've gone through the LRI promotion, then it's pretty much a shoo-in that you're going to meet those criteria with the CCLCM.
Yeah, Dr. Brodsky, you're not an LRI, correct? I don't know.
Probably
if you
just
wanna-
easier for me to talk than it's type.
Okay.
No, I'm not an LRI. I'm in HNI.
Okay.
I'm a new hire, so this would be a new opportunity for me to be appointed with an academic rank. And the feeling was that I would go up for full professor and not have any issues, but there's certainly self-doubt here. I'm coming into a brand new institution and everything that goes with it.
If you feel free to reach out to any of us.
Yeah, I would suggest you put your CV in our template, and then you could have others look at it or send it to our faculty affairs email. We can have our Associate Dean, Dr. Jean Barnett, look it over. And we can give you an opinion of where you stand based on, what the requirements are for research.
That would be very helpful. Thank you. Who do I address the email to?
You can just send it to Faculty Affairs, CCLCM@ccf.org, and
Okay.
just address it to the department, and we'll get it to Dr. Barnett. And then, there's a few others, I think, in head and neck that have done this with research. So it might not be bad if you spoke to one of them, even on how theirs went.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? There are a few institutes like head and neck and cardiology that have full-time researchers. The majority are in LRI, but there are a few that are not. So that was a good example. Anybody else have any other questions? Or I was going to show everybody the website. I don't know if everybody's
Quick question. Do you need on the reference or nominating faculty, does need to be in the drop down, if somebody does not have a previous appointment?
Yeah, that's okay. If they're not in our drop down, you can pick other. We like you to pick the chair that knows you best to write your nomination letter. If you
Right.
pick somebody higher up who is, maybe you find on the drop down, they're not maybe going to know you as well. So it's okay if you have to type in other and type in their information. That's not a
Because I'm
problem.
already the chair, so I'm trying to go.
Well, then
higher.
most likely who you're going to pick will be in the drop down then, because are you institute chair?
No, department chair, so
Department chair. So you're going to pick your institute chair most
Right.
likely.
it's not in the drop down, so I just need to add.
Okay, yeah, you would have to type it in then.
Okay.
That list pulls from OPSA, so maybe they don't have him in right now or her. But feel free to type it in.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
I think a question, Janine, is if it's possible to get the slides, and I think they're readily available, and this is also being audio recorded, or hopefully not video recorded, but I assume so. And
It is, and I noticed that even though I hit recording in the beginning, it did not do it. So it was after you started talking, Dr. Kaboo, that
oh, lovely.
but yeah, so you'll be the first thing, which is good, because when I look at the old ones and I see me first, I'm not happy. But there are 3 on our website. And so if this one works properly, I will get this one posted in the next week or 2. But there is 2 from 2020 and 1 from 2022 that are on our CCLCM website. What else? And I can send the slides. Nicole, if you can send me those, I will send it to everybody who is at this meeting with some other information.
Just said.
Okay. Wow. This lady's juggling cats and kids and sending, and she's got it together. Maybe someday.
No, it either has to happen now or it doesn't happen. So that's why that works.
Yeah,
Hence the advice about updating your CV regularly.
I'm telling you, don't delay. Just start
That's what
now.
I do
Start
every
now.
year.
Don't worry about the backlog. Just start now.
If you guys could please talk about external referees. As somebody who reviews applications and works with candidates, the 2 hardest things, I used to think the worst was having them put their CV in our template. I think that's really not a problem anymore. The most trouble I have is with who they pick as external referees.
Yeah, I think, Nicole, why don't you go through like the official definition, and then
Sure.
maybe I can advise on how to kind of really think through this in the nitty gritty, like on the ground as a faculty member.
So, again, I want to kind of just go back to the intent and the purpose of these referees are someone who is in your field. So they're looking at your CV and they understand the organizations and the activities that you're doing. So they're an expert in a similar or same field that you are in. But they don't have any stake in your career, right? So this is not a former close mentor. This is not someone that was at your last institution that you just transferred from. It's not someone who is best friends with your wife, or that your families go together on summer vacations together. So it has to be a non-close, professional or personal, it doesn't work. So it can be someone that you have been on a committee with. It could be someone that you grab coffee with when you see them at a conference, and you could in fact know their children's name, whatever it is. Like, that is not a deal breaker. It really is something that they're still objective enough. And so that's the whole term of arm's length. They are removed enough from you. It used to be a total bar if you had ever published or if you had ever been on a grant together. But thankfully, a couple of years ago, our provost changed the regulations and said, after 7 years, if you were a co-author or you were at the same institution and you have since moved apart, that person can become arm's length again. If you're still very closely interacting, I wouldn't recommend, because we ask every single external referee, please let us know how you know this individual. And if they're like, oh my gosh, Cynthia is fantastic, and it goes on and on, you are. But I would just say, we do this. We are such great collaborators. She's one of my favorite people to work with. We're like, cool, that's not arm's length, and we can't use it. So please imagine when we ask that reviewer a question, if they say, yes, I worked with Cynthia about a decade ago, and, did these projects and whatever. I think the highest ever I've gotten to watch, her career blossom, and change over the years. They're allowed to be familiar with you, but there does need to be a period or a break. And so I would just say, be very attentive to the fact that our reviewers will absolutely do a search. And so there are some things that I haven't seen, and all of a sudden we're at the school committee and they're like, well, when I did this search, I found out that they actually were both at the same institution 2 institutions ago, but it was only 6 years ago. And I'm like, I didn't see that. That we have to throw out. And you don't want it to get to the school level and then not have it, go through. So please don't think you will sneak one by. I don't think it is intentional. I think just be very deliberate and look at that relationship and say, no, that is clearly more than 7 years from when I am submitting that name to when they would be asked to write a letter. And then I will also say some relationships are just too close. So I use the example of my PhD thesis advisor. It doesn't matter if it's 7 or 20 years, they are invested, right? That is a close relationship that doesn't really go away. And they don't become unbiased. And so that relationship never, gets arm's length even after 7 years or more. So those are examples, right? And that's it. You have to figure out where that is, but that 7 years is important. Arm's length is important, not a close personal and professional relationship.
I agree. I think only 2 points I want to add on to that is that, say you're engaged in a multi-site large clinical trial. You could have published with somebody who's on that trial, even if it's within 7 years, correct, Nicole? That's my understanding.
And
if it's
so
a huge study with like 100 million authors on that, that's fine because that's distant enough, right? So I think that that's important to keep in mind, but it's really the intention behind it, as she emphasized. The other thing I want to say is, having sat as a reviewer for many of these applications, I don't want to think how many hundreds, is that at least my perspective has been is that we really take this responsibility seriously, and it's not to trip people up, but to be absolutely fair with everybody. And sometimes it may just be an offhand remark and a letter that says, it was great to see them last year at Disneyland. It's like, wait, that's not typically what happens, with an external referee or something of this sort. And so those kinds of things, so you want to just be careful. You are going to have to submit far more names than you need, because it takes a wide net to get 6 letters. Once again, as somebody who is frequently requested to write letters, that's not that your application doesn't have merit. It's just that there's a limit in terms of how many letters I can write as somebody who's in this position. Do not be shy about listing people's names. It's a part of our professional responsibility to pay it forward, and we expect to do that. But once again, there can be limits on time. Think about people related fields who can write, like I'd mentioned earlier, and don't be shy. I mean, as I said, this is something that we're expected to do as part of our role in academic medicine.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I would just say one more thing is your mentors, and why another reason they're so important is they help you identify arm's length referees. So I may not, have that extensive network, but the mentors that I pick and are helping me get promoted, and I say, I'm looking for arm's length referees, they may know people, and they can then say, I'm going to give them a heads up that we're going to list them. And so again, it's part of being strategic. It's being clear about what your needs are, what your timeline is, and making the ask. You are not in this alone, There is a whole team here to support you that want to see you succeed. And so have them expand that capital. And so I would just say, get over the guilt about it. It'll be your turn soon enough. And, make those connections and have it be a very explicit ask about it.
Right.
All right. I think I might have to go. So I'm going to sign off, but if there are questions, please feel free to email me, and thank you.
And if they're, if they, forgot what I was going to say now, but if they were in a large study with you, like Dr. Kabu was saying, and you didn't actually work directly with them, notate that on your CV. So under the article that you worked with them, but it was not close because it was a multi site study, you're going to put the referee's name and say that you did not work with them closely because it was a multi-site study. You're just going to be very careful. You're picking referees that are going to make your packet the strongest. So I find people will say, will pick referees, say they just moved from California and they pick like 5 referees from California. You know, they'll pick University of Berkeley, University of San Diego. You're not doing your packet any favors if like half of your referee names are from one state. You're trying to say that you have a regional or national reputation. You should spread out where you're picking these referees from. And we do try to look at them after you hit submit, but a lot of times we don't find out until the letters come back, or we get emails saying, is it okay that I used to be their mentor? Or is it okay that I don't work where they used to work, but I did like a year ago and now I moved somewhere else? And is it okay that I just was colleagues with them a year ago? And we have to write back and say, no, that's not okay. Thanks for letting us know. We're going to remove your name. So just be very careful when you pick them, because it does hold up a lot of applications when we don't get good names. I have had somebody, like Dr. Kabu was saying about Disneyland, I had somebody, an external one, write that they were going to be in the candidate's wedding in 2 weeks. And that automatically means they're not arm's length then. So don't try to pick people you know, pick people, like Dr. Kabu said, that you don't know. They will write because of it's a professional, you know, obligation to write. So we get the best letters from people who don't know you at all, and who just, you know, out of professional obligation, they write a referee letter, and it's great.
Or just to clarify, they know you by your professional work, but they don't know you personally.
Right.
Really well.
Yeah. I mean, some will actually say, like for associate professor, that they hadn't heard of you, but based on your CV and your personal statement, they are so glad they can write the letter because they see what a reputation you have. And maybe they're going to start following you now even. Because your work is related to what they do. So those letters end up being the really good ones.
I think another common question, and then I may sign off as well, unless there are more questions from all of you, is how do you even start to establish these reputations? Nicole touched on this, but I think some of the things that you do is you volunteer. You run for office and you do things like that. And that's one way that you can start to establish these reputations. Even if you don't get the office the first time you run, you are signaling that you're interested in service at a national level or a regional level. People remember that, and that's how you can get engaged more and more. So I'd encourage you to think about that as well. I'm looking to see, I think the audience is dwindling because it is that magic witching hour. I guess, are there other questions? What else can we do to help allay some of these anxieties and demystify this process? I don't know about you, but I'm hearing crickets as well as my dog who wants to go outside.
I do. If anybody wants to stay on, I will go over our website really quick. Anybody who wants to go, that's fine. If you have any questions, feel free to email faculty affairs at facultyaffairs@cclcm.ccf.org. And me or my coworkers will be happy to get back to you and assist you in any way we can. We are, you know, the amount of applications that get approved are very high. So a lot of, that's one question sometimes we get is there a high rate of not in favor votes from our committees? And no, they're not. I think you work with your chair enough to see if you're ready. And then you also turn in your application and we look it over as well. And then I would say probably like 99% get past our CAP committee and go on to case and get approved.
Yeah,
So
if there's a problem, it's a technical problem with an external referee more often than not. Very good. So I'm just going to take a minute to wish everybody happy holidays and once again to express my sincere appreciation for your attendance and your commitment to a career in academic medicine. We need very talented faculty such as all of you. I've got the best job in the world because I get to work with such talented faculty. And Deneen and her office are a tremendous resource, as well as the Case School of Medicine Office of Faculty Affairs. So happy holidays, everybody. And thanks, Deneen, for organizing this again. Take care.
Okay, take care, Dr. Cabu. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Can everybody see my CCLCM Faculty Affairs website?
Right now we see a blue screen and
Oh, you
two
do?
icons.
Oh, I guess I'm sharing the wrong screen. Let me do that one more time, but thank you. Sometimes out in Zoom land, it's hard to know. Now, can you see it?
Much better.
Okay, great. Thank you. So this is our Faculty Affairs website. If you want to go to it, all you have to do is go to Google Chrome or Safari or Firefox and type in CCLCM. It's going to be the first thing that pops up usually. So this is the website. At the top, it's going to say faculty here. So you're going to click on that. Then here's our associate deans, executive dean, Dr. Isaacson, and assistant deans. There's 4 categories. The 2 that are probably used the most are current college faculty. Say you're wondering, hey, I wonder if one of my coworkers has a faculty appointment so I can ask them how they did it. You go to the page where we have our executive dean, Dr. I, and you click on the View Current CCLCM Faculty. And you go to this Find Faculty site, and you would type in, say, Dr. Isaacson, and you would see here that he's a professor. So then you would know that you could ask him maybe how he did his application or get help. You can also search by department. And you can also search by a really big list. That list, it takes like 30 seconds to pull this list up, but it's a very extensive list that says what department people are actually in clinical. So you can work, look at that list as well. If you were interested in teaching at our college, you can go to, you can see who's a curriculum leader currently, or who's a longitudinal preceptor. That's listed on here. The next one that a lot of people will go to is appointments and promotions. So under faculty, we went to appointments and promotions. We have the video we just watched, because I know you're all going to want to watch it again. But here is apply for new appointment or promotion. When you go here, a couple of things I want to point out. One is that Dr. Mehta, who's in charge of our curriculum, he started a new, our college created a new app where you can actually look up what roles are open in the college. So say you're really interested in teaching with medical students, you can go here, and anything that's in bold is actually open right now, and you could be on a committee or teaching, and you can search by different areas. So that's interesting. The other thing on our website is our comparison tool. So say somebody's unsure, should they go on the regular track or the clinical track, they can go on here and see what the differences are. So if you look here, the reputation for an associate professor is regional Midwest or emerging national. This doesn't take into account research, which would be national. But you can see that the applications take 12 to 14 months. Here at the end is the promotions. And it tells you here what's required for everything. So this is a nice thing. This is our comparison tool. Then it goes ahead and talks about what you need to apply. And here's the 4 steps to apply. You have to choose your faculty rank. Then you have to log in and start an application. So here's where you go to start your application. If you're a promotion person, you've already have an application, you know, you already have an appointment. So you already have a portal account because you needed it to make your application the first time. If you don't remember how to get into the portal, you would go here and go forget your username or password, and they're going to send you a temporary password to get in again. And once you're in there, you're going to see your current appointment, and you're going to be able to apply for a promotion. If you're brand new and you've never done any appointment, you would click here, need to create a new account, because you need a portal account. Inside the portal is our online application. So that's how you get to the portal. The other way to get to the portal is at the very top here of our website. And the other way is just to Google CCLCM College Portal, and the login page is going to pull up. So then you're going to see step 3 is complete your application, and you're going to have our template here. And this is the template you have to use for your CV. And then the 4th thing is submit your application. It may seem simple, but there are people every year who email us and say, how come my application's not progressing? And it's because they never hit submit. We do not work on applications until you hit submit, and you can't hit submit until all your documents are uploaded. The last place I want to show you about is when you're under appointments and promotions, you're going to go to this resource tab. And when you go to resources, every document that was on other pages is going to be all collected on this one tab. So the videos I talked about are right here. The workshop from June of 2022 is on here, as well as 2 videos from 2020. And of course, there's different questions asked each time, so you may want to look at those. If you need screenshots on how to apply, our comparison tool, the requirement checklist that tell you everything you need to do to say apply for a promotion, they're right here, as well as the CV template, information on a teaching portfolio, and other information. So the resources is a good tab to go to. These requirements checklist, they're all over the place, but they specifically go over everything you need to do for your application. And they're long and they're wordy, but they are a good place to look before you email us, because my office tries to include any information that somebody may need. Questions I've been asked over the years, I put the answers in here. So there's a long section on referees, but it is so important to read these external referee information here on how to pick someone who's arm's length. And again, like we mentioned before, you're putting in a lot of names. You have to put in 14 names, but we only need 6 letters for your application to move forward. For colleague, you put in 5 names. We only need 2 good letters. For trainees, you put in 8 names, and we need 4 letters. So again, there's a lot of information out there, but if you need help, we are here to help. We want you to succeed. And really, you've probably already done everything you need to apply the reputation. You just need to apply and get credit for it. So does anybody have any other questions on the website or anything else? Okay. Well, I appreciate you joining us. This website too, you do not need to be on the intranet. This is a public site, so you can just be at home. You don't have to be logged into Cleveland Clinic to look at this, nor do you have to be logged into Cleveland Clinic to apply. Our online application is just through the internet. So apply when you're ready. and let us know if you have any questions. Okay. Oh, yes, the recording, Dr. Bagarva, I will download that tomorrow, and then it takes at least a week or two for the website team to get it uploaded. But feel free under resources. There are 3 videos that were done previously that are on there. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.